I'm about to tell you about a situation I was involved with where someone who had an LLC wound up being personally liable for hundreds of thousands of dollars. They had huge judgments against them personally. It was ruinous to them. The worst part of it is that if they had done just a couple of things differently, they could have avoided this situation entirely. As an attorney who's helped over 70,000 entrepreneurs form and manage their companies, I am gonna make sure that you don't make this catastrophic mistake. I'm Jonathan Finiak. I'm the lead attorney at LLC Attorney. We're not a law firm, but we help entrepreneurs form thousands of companies each month and help them achieve the privacy and asset protection they need and help them stay compliant. Today, I'm gonna share some really easy things that you can do to make sure that your company's veil isn't pierced and that you're not held personally liable for mistakes that your company may make. Here's the problem. LLCs and corporations give you the promise of limited liability protection. That means that if the company makes a mistake, the company should be the only entity, the only thing that's liable for those mistakes. But everyone who has a problem with your company when it makes a mistake is gonna try to hold you personally liable. What many business owners don't realize, though, it's not as easy as forming your LLC, set it and forget it. That doesn't mean you have the protection that you really think you signed up for. It's important that you're creating a separation between yourself as the business owner or the manager or the officer and the company and its activities. With small companies, though, it can be a problem because you really are the company, right? You're not, but that's what it feels like sometimes. When you're a sole practitioner, you're a consultant, you're running your contracting business, you're the only one involved. So it's almost obvious that you're gonna be one and the same, that the company's your alter ego, but that's what gets you in trouble. The number one reason that the veil of your company is gonna be pierced and that you're gonna be held personally responsible is because you don't have proper documentation. Your company doesn't look like a real company because you know what real companies do? They have documentation. They maintain separate bank accounts, right? They've got meeting minutes. They're doing things in a structured way. When we're walking around in the world as individuals, we can do things willy-nilly. Don't fall into the trap and do things willy-nilly when it comes to your LLC. Is it okay to say willy-nilly? I don't know. Let me tell you about a real person who was sued personally for over $500,000. They owned a contracting business. This individual, this person, owned a contracting business. They thought they had limited liability protection. If someone sued the LLC, they thought, well, they can't get to me, right? The LLC made the mistake, not me. That was not the case here. What happened was this company, this contractor, hired a subcontractor, someone unaffiliated with the company. They hired them to do something very specific that required licensing, that required special skills. But what the owner of that person who sued for $500,000 didn't do is make sure that that subcontractor was actually licensed and trained to do that. It was related to asbestos and asbestos remediation, and what wound up happening is that subcontractor did not do the job correctly. It wound up causing harm to the contractor's client. They came back years later and they sued. And they sued not just the company, not just the LLC, but that person individually. This person wound up losing the case for two reasons. One, he did not keep separation between himself and the company. It's a veil piercing. It's a very simple, classic veil piercing. Didn't have good business records. It was really just the company was this alter ego. He didn't make a differentiation when the company was responsible or when he was. So the debt was against the company, and then it was then projected onto the owner was made responsible. The other way that they won against the individual was they said the individual was not actually acting in a capacity as the member or manager of the company when they made their decision. They didn't exercise business judgment. They were like, hey, this is a personal decision, right? This is a personal decision I'm making about hiring this subcontractor. And if it's a personal decision, no limited liability protection. So there's a fine legal point there, but at the end of the day, this individual, the veil piercing they could have protected against, they also could have protected against this failure to observe formalities and make sure that business decisions are being made, failing to make sure that they're exercising business judgment. So here is the way to avoid this. One, on the veil piercing side, much more common. Make sure you and the company are separate. Even when it's a small company, when you're the only one involved, are you maintaining a separate bank account for the company? This is the biggest one. Customer payments are not made out to you as the owner, they're made out to the company. They go into the company bank account. The company pays its expenses, it pays its subcontractors, it pays for the goods that it's ordering, that it's inventory, everything is happening in that business bank account, and then your profit is done as a distribution to you. The same token, if the company needs additional funds, you're not just whipping out your credit card, your personal credit card, and buying things for the company. You're making a contribution to the company, and then the company is going to purchase those goods in its own name. So you're maintaining that separation. You're keeping meeting minutes of things like contributions, distributions. You're keeping the company in good standing. You're making sure that contracts are being executed with the company name, not your name personally, on that contract. That's some of the most important things you could do to prevent veil piercing. Another thing that's often missed is this exercising of business judgment. The world, the states, everyone wants you to take business risks, but you can't take really undue or unconsidered business risks. If you take a business risk, you can exercise business judgment. But how do you prove you're exercising business judgment? Do meeting minutes, make meeting minutes to show I considered hiring a subcontractor to do asbestos remediation. And I looked at whether they were licensed and insured. I made sure they were properly bonded, that they had the proper equipment, and I hired them. If this individual had done that, they would not have been held personally responsible, because even if this contractor, the subcontractor, messed up, the reason they messed up is not because I didn't exercise business judgment. It was because it was just errors occur, right? And so these are the two different ways to think about how you protect yourself. And documentation in both cases is really important. General business practices, banking, expenses, everything is concentrated in that business entity. Money in, money out. You've got some sort of record of the money that you put into the company or money you took out of the company. And then this last one, if it's a decision that could even remotely lead to you getting sued, you gotta have a record showing that you exercise business judgment. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, but we actually make it really easy to do special meeting minutes, contribution, distribution meeting minutes, and other types of business activities right inside the LLC attorney client portal. So that business decision, you show that you thought it through. You didn't hire that person because they're your buddy and you owe them money. You hired that person because they were qualified to do the job. They had the right licensing, they had the right insurance, they got Better Business Bureau ratings for them, or Yelp or Angie's List or whatever it is. So you show that the reason you made that decision was based on sound business judgment, and you're going to be protected. Not a big deal here, but you do need to make sure you're doing it. Most entrepreneurs and business owners are not thinking about documentation until it's too late. It's much better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. We make it very easy through llcattorney.com to make sure you have the proper documentation, that it's going to be easy to do, and it's going to help you avoid some of the horror stories we've been talking about here today. All of this comes at a fraction of what it would cost to hire an attorney. We're not a law firm, but we've taken the knowledge and experience of attorneys and made it easy for you to benefit from these really easy to use tools. Click the link below to learn more about the services of LLC attorney, and stay tuned if you want to watch an additional video about operating agreements coming up next.